Hey everybody, welcome back to Coast Live. Mineral Rights 101, Western United States. Just wanted to go ahead and unleash the fury, unleash the Kraken, as you might say. We're just going to go ahead and release the top secret information that was basically discovered. It's not really top secret, I'm just kidding. But it was basically a cover-up that was uncovered. And so the cover-up that was uncovered regarding the mineral rights was basically an attempt to hijack all the mineral patents issued during the gold rush, which is basically unleashing a new gold rush. So we discovered tax fraud on all the mineral patents issued during the gold rush, property tax fraud. So we found out that around 1924, after the gold rush was over and all the miners were pretty much gone, had left their mineral patents out there, their gold mines out there in the wilderness on the mountain somewhere in some rural county, wherever they may be. The county actually went in there and started assessing taxes on these mineral patents when there are no taxes, because the federal laws in the mineral patents make them federal jurisdiction, right? Which anybody can read them. It's not rocket science. You can clearly see there's federal laws in the mineral patents that if you read like a normal land patents don't have federal laws in them that make them federal jurisdiction. So therefore those are subject to taxation by the state, which 90% of all patents issued during the United States history are regular land patents. Like a normal farming land patent for 160 acres or 80 acres or 40 acres was pretty much how they were distributed. And they don't have federal laws in them that make them federal jurisdiction. The mineral patents, however, were $3 to $5 an acre, which versus $1.25 an acre on the regular patents. So they were more expensive for the mineral patents, and they also had these federal laws put into them because most of these people were investing in these pieces of land that were in the middle of nowhere, literally on a mountain in the middle of freaking nowhere. So that's one reason why they're none of the county's business, actually. The chief of title matters of the United States actually verified, the chief of counsel for title matters of the United States actually got involved from the Department of Justice and verified my chain of title, as well as the fact that the county started a second fake chain of title basically through the sheriff. So the sheriff is actually implicated in the tax fraud, all the sheriffs across the entire western frontier where the mineral patents are issued, because they're the ones that started the fake chains of title through a sheriff's tax sale. So the sheriff went out there and basically just started selling these properties that are located in the federal jurisdiction of the National Forest, National Park, federal land that's, federal jurisdiction anyway. But, the county says, well, once a patent is issued, it becomes private property and is therefore subject to taxation by the state. Well, and that's what they say. Well, that's why we sold your uncle's property, your great uncle's gold mine. We sold that. He didn't pay his taxes. Well, that's true 90% of the time. The other 10% of the time, they put federal laws into the patents so that the county couldn't do that, making the patents and the property federal jurisdiction. And the county does not have any authority to assess property taxes in federal jurisdiction or do anything on those properties. And so that is basically what the fraud was uncovered. It's not rocket science. Anybody can read the mineral patents. They have conditions and stipulations of sale, and then it will say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or maybe just 1, 2, 3, depending on some of the actual federal laws are pertaining to their mineral mining rights, their ability to dig this way, that way, under the property, whatever. And then usually it's the last federal law in the patent there in the conditions and stipulations area that makes it federal jurisdiction, which basically says in the absence of necessary legislation by Congress, whatever state can make rules regarding easements and drainage, yada yada. So only in the absence of necessary legislation by Congress. And there is no necessary legislation by Congress. Necessary legislation isn't needed. The property's private property. It's over. It's, the patent was issued. Legislation's not going to be needed. And so that's why that's in there. And so the only time Congress has been absent, only in the absence of necessary legislation by Congress, can the state do anything. Well, the only time that the Congress has been absent, for one, was during the Civil War, and necessary legislation isn't going to be needed, as I pointed out. It's private property. It's a contract between the United States and the original owner. It's done. It's over. It's now private property, even though it's still federal jurisdiction. So basically, it's removing the legislative ability from the state. And, unless Congress becomes absent for some reason, which is not going to happen. So that's basically what the Chief of Title Matters of the United States verified, is that is what that federal law means. Makes it federal jurisdiction because, the state does not have any legislative ability unless Congress becomes absent for some reason, which isn't going to happen. And so, and even if it did happen, it's still private property. So it doesn't, the state can't change the ownership in any way or the contract. So it's done deal. And so there you have it. Basically, all the mineral patents issued during the gold rush were thousands. There were thousands from 1840 to 1920. Whatever your last name may be, Miller, Jackson, Jones, Snyder, Wilson, Mr. Wilson, whatever. There's mineral patents, a database that can be looked up at the General Land Office records, and you can basically pull up the database of how many of your ancestors settled gold mines. And believe it or not, if your ancestor had one, it's quite possible he had more than one. A lot of these guys, that's all they did for decades was be gold miners, and they'd work one claim, get their patent, move on to another one. A lot of times, if they didn't find what they were looking for. Usually they had to find gold, some kind of gold, though, in order to get the patent issued to begin with. So, some of them are worth millions or billions of dollars because there were large deposits or maybe a vein of gold on the property. Collectively, they're worth trillions with a T. And so, obviously we have a new gold rush here where it's become a situation where people need to look into their genealogy and find out if they possibly own a gold mine that one of their ancestors settled. Most people have no idea if one of their ancestors settled a gold mine or a patent during the gold rush. But I mean, obviously, a lot of them did because there's thousands of them. Again, all the way from Alaska down to California. The California gold rush was in 1840. The Colorado gold rush. All over the place. So basically, this is information that you'd want to know. That if you possibly owned a gold mine and didn't know about it, that would be distressing. I mean, I would be a little bit upset, if that were the case, that I lived my entire life owning a gold mine but not knowing about it and couldn't do anything about it because I didn't know about it. So that's partially, again, what Mineral Rights 101 here, Western USA, is notifying the general public again that fraud was discovered on all the mineral patents. And so basically they all have fake chains of title on them. And there's ways to address that, obviously, to, remove trespassers from fake chains of title. It's not that difficult to do. And yeah, so that's what's happening all over the place currently, because, this word is just getting out to the general public. A lot of people aren't even aware that they own these properties. So that's where it comes in, where my expertise basically is needed on a lot of issues, and I've done consulting for title insurance companies on this subject, as well as a lot of private landowners, private property owners, as well as people that are entwined with the fraud that didn't realize what they had gotten into. Questions can be sent to Jesse James Legend at gmail.com. We'll send. I started a company called Mineral Peak Title Matters, which I started a Facebook page for that, which is basically just going to be a division of my other company, Miller Machine Tools. But we'll try and keep all our questions to my email here for Coast to Coast Live at jessejameslegend at gmail.com. So, I can help out with the mineral patent searches on how to get those done. I can help out with the genealogy stuff, as well as directions on that. Talk to several genealogists that that do this, and some experts have pointed out that we can track backward or forward with the mineral patents. So if we have an idea of, all we really need is a name and a location of where they lived, and we can start connecting them to their relatives through searches, and there's ways to do that. So they found a Civil War guy buried down the road here in a land development, and it was an old farm property that was being developed, and they found like 19 bodies there that they had no idea. It was an old graveyard. One of them was a Civil War guy, and I think he died in like 1872 or something like that, and they tracked down his great niece in Aurora, Illinois. And she had no idea, had never even heard of this guy before, because he was like her great uncle. But she had the body basically removed to the family cemetery, and so the genealogists that did that worked with the Illinois University of Illinois, I believe it was Illinois State, I think it was Illinois State Archaeology Department / genealogy people that they actually used private genealogists that I had talked to that worked on that project. So yeah, they can track backwards or forwards to find these properties. So, but again, there's a lot of questions regarding the whole process. What do you do with the patents once you find them, and how do you do the searches and so forth? So send me any questions to JesseJamesLegend at Gmail. And thanks for tuning in to Coast Live. Take care.